Welcome to Reflections, the podcast that biblically encourages, equips, and empowers women for apostolic life and service. Here's your host, Dr. Cindy Miller.
All right, welcome to Let's Talk. I'm your host, Cindy Miller, and with us for this episode is Karissa King, and you may know her from Dear Young Married Couple, and hopefully they listened to our last podcast. It was amazing, and we talked about re-energizing a marriage and loving the person that you married. It was so much fun. Oh,
it was
my word.
Fun conversation.
We could have gone on forever, and we almost did. Almost tried that. Let's Talk is also in the print version of Reflections magazine, and that's where we highlight the key points from the conversations we have here. So I'm hoping that you're getting the print copy or the digital copy of Reflections. Karissa, welcome back.
Thank you
and
for having me back.
Please thank Adam for sharing you. I know he's probably holding down the fort while you're here, right?
He's doing awesome.
And so make sure he knows that we are very grateful. He's so kind. Aww. So pretty soon we'll be talking about Dr. King, not Karissa King. She is this close to have finishing up earning that PhD in biblical interpretation and theology. And if you don't know, she is wife to Adam, mommy to Adeline and Forrest. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist in the state of California. And together with her husband, they have created the very popular Dear Young Married Couple Resource Center, providing counseling, coaching, retreats, conferences, courses, and a super fun podcast. And I heard a rumor you have over 1.5 million downloads. Is that correct?
We do. I think we just passed 2 million downloads.
Oh, 2 million. I'm 500,000 behind. Well, I am pretty sure that probably 500,000 of those I've referred personally.
Aww.
So I'm just a huge fan of all things Dear Young Married Couple. Aww. And thank you for your passion and burden for marriage, God's version of it, and the biblical concepts that you're bringing to us and to everyone who connects with you. We're just so grateful for the work you're doing. You are such a gift to the apostolic movement.
Thank you, Dr. Miller.
Thank
you so much for having me on the podcast. I love the ladies ministry Let's Talk podcast and how it's impacting women all over the world. And I'm really grateful to have the conversation with you today.
Oh, well, you're just a delight. And I'm just so thankful for this time. Like, I am so blessed to know you. And, I don't
Likewise.
often get to say that, but of course, we promised ourselves coming over, we're not going to talk about research. We're both into that. We're really research nerds, and we promise we're not going to do that. But just everything she's a part of, I just love. So let's just start with this. I don't know of any pastor or leader right now when we get calls and just connections and messaging like, oh, I have this couple, or I need this resource, or how do I find this? Yeah. And it just seems like most pastors that I know or leaders in churches, part of what they're doing on a weekly basis is providing pastoral care and counseling to couples, right, either for trying to help enrich what is not going horrible, but also trying to intervene in situations that at this point, it seems like if something doesn't happen, this is going to go in a direction it doesn't need to go.
Yeah.
And so I hear from pastors, they just feel like they're drowning in the demands. Pastors' wives, like, I spend so much time on the phone with this person or meeting with this person, and and they're trying to grow the church and provide spiritual guidance and have great Sunday school.
Right.
Everything can't be about the needs of the married couple, but yet, the larger the church grows, the bigger the investment in time needed for stabilizing marriages or enriching or intervening.
Right.
So what can we talk about today? One of the reasons I wanted you to come is to really talk about Dear Young Married Couple, what it offers. It is a resource, an apostolic resource to pastors who are struggling. And so I kind of want you to introduce Dear Young Married Couple to the listener.
Sure.
Like, this is who we are. This is what we have. This is, just And then we'll just talk about some other areas. But let's start with you introducing Dear Young Married Couple.
Aw, well, I think you did a great job introducing Dear Young Married Couple earlier. But we provide resources for both the marriage and for the church. So we have resources that the church can use to implement in their small groups or in their premarital programs, et cetera, but also for the couple just to use resources at home. We also provide marriage counseling and a podcast and retreats. And so we're all about not just, equipping marriages and intervening when necessary, but also about celebrating marriage. That's a key component, actually, that I want to focus on in our conversation today.
Oh, excellent. I like that.
Yeah.
But I think if leadership is listening, it's not just about, here's this resource. You go find the help you need there. Mm-hmm. What I'm hearing you say is a pastor, a leader, anyone who works with couples, even in the community, could say, I'm going to this site because there is so much for the church to use, to implement, to build this work within the congregation itself.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely. And I think the educating, equipping, and supporting part is crucial. So often the celebration part gets missed. And I would say to these pastors of maybe smaller to medium churches that are so overwhelmed with trying to take everything on themselves, and I got to get more resources and I got to put more programs on, and start by acknowledging with your own marriage that marriage is a beautiful thing. And celebrate that publicly.
So what's that going to look like?
Yeah.
I mean, I love this idea. Let's talk about it.
Okay.
What does it mean for me to go home and celebrate publicly my marriage?
Well, first of all,
I want to.
It's prioritizing your marriage as your first ministry. Once you have that vertical alignment with the Lord, your very next priority needs to be your spouse, not your church. I know it sounds really direct because you're called to shepherd these people. But if you aren't shepherding your own home, your spouse and your children, then your priorities are not aligned because you have to fulfill your first calling. And so
this might be an ouch moment.
Yeah, maybe
for many.
Maybe.
But we look at people and we're like negative about being a workaholic. But sometimes we applaud the churchaholic,
it's
and
true.
What you're saying is church should not be a hiding place because we don't want to go home.
Ooh, yes. And that's common in so many couples in leadership, couples in ministry that we work with on a weekly basis. Most of our clients are in some sort of leadership capacity, many of them pastors, evangelists, and they feel this pressure to, like you said, be a churchaholic and to prioritize their quote unquote ministry over their marriage. So first, before we equip and educate and support marriages in our churches, we have to celebrate it. And it starts in our own home as the leaders. Think about it. Your people, and we could say to you personally too, as the pastor or leader, but your people are working 5, 6, 7 days a week. They have church 2-3 nights a week. And then they, on top of that, have small groups and volunteering and meetings for the church. And they have children and homework and all the things.
They still need to clean the house and grocery shop and mow the grass.
If they haven't outsourced that. And they are drowning. And so for you to put the pressure on them to do yet another thing, then you're automatically sending the message without saying it that your marriage is not as important. Where's the time to focus on each other? I mean, let alone have sex, but even just to focus on each other.
Right. To be friends.
To just
enjoy time in each other's presence.
Right. So I applaud the pastors, and then they're rare, but the ones that I come in contact with that will say over the pulpit, like, hey, you need to take the night off tomorrow. Don't come to anything going on. Like, go be with your spouse. Or they'll say about their own marriage, we're actually not coming to anything over the next week because we're taking a sabbatical at home.
I love that.
It's beautiful.
And that gives not only are they giving themselves permission to do the right thing, but it sends such a message, and and they're giving permission to couples to celebrate their own relationship.
Yes. Yeah. And then actually it's, we see this in the Jewish tradition, not just Jewish tradition, but in the biblical model. There's a verse in Deuteronomy that talks about for the first year that the man and the wife were to not go to war or do anything that was, work or production oriented. They were to focus on their marriage. We don't really take that principle at all.
I haven't seen anybody implement that.
No.
But what a beautiful thought. How nice.
Wouldn't that be nice? But I mean, let's see, even if we're not going to say don't work, but take the principle, like focus, prioritize, focus on your marriage, especially in that first year. And don't put the pressure on couples to jump right into all these ministerial endeavors. So yes, all the programs are important and we can talk about those practical pieces, but first celebrate marriage openly, whether that's over the pulpit in your sermons. I mean, when's the last time you did a sermon out of the Song of Solomon? And didn't make it only about God and Israel.
Right.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, there's a lot of things, just speaking from the pastoral role, there's a lot of pressure. So we have Sunday service. Yes. Not everyone has Sunday night anymore. You have the Wednesday Bible study. You have, all of these different discipleships and connect groups. And you think, I only have this 1 hour. I need to reach across this broad audience of needs of married, single, widowed, divorced, very, very young, the teenage, you just feel like, so what is this? What is the broad message to the church today? And I think sometimes we do that so often, we forget it's okay sometimes to focus on a group within the congregation. Every single service doesn't have to be the broad message. And to say, sometimes it's okay just to talk about marriage and intimacy in marriage and a holy marriage. And so I'm hoping anyone listening is like, it's okay to have a celebration of Marriage Day at your church. And you can do that even if you have a tight budget and a small staff.
Right.
That's something everyone can do in their local church.
That's exactly it. Everyone can do this. And it doesn't have to be just focused on the married people if you're talking about marriage. Everyone, from the children to those who are elderly, need a healthy understanding of marriage. It's what God chose as our life here on earth to reflect his relationship with us. Marriage is a parallel between God and Israel, Christ and the church. And so if we don't ever talk about marriage to the whole congregation, children all the way up to the elderly, then we're doing ourselves a disservice because we're not discussing that representation that the Lord gave us to understand better our relationship with him. So it's a theology gap if we don't address it.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. And I mean, you think about the first century weddings, there were, intertestamental period, even first century, the Jewish weddings, there were multiple days long feasts. And the first day looked a lot like our wedding ceremony where they would exchange vows and then they would have a reception or celebration. But before the celebration, they would set up a bridal chamber and the couple would go in there and consummate their marriage. The reception did not start yet. Like our receptions start while they're doing their pictures and so they would wait. They all waited. They stood, actually the bridal party and the parents stood right outside the bridal chamber.
Oh, right? Yeah.
But here's the point. Who's present at a wedding? Is it just married couples?
No.
It's everyone.
Everybody.
Little 3-year-old Johnny is present. And what do you think Johnny's asking his mommy when the couple's in there consummating their marriage? And what are they doing?
Right.
So, of course, mommy's going to give Johnny an age and stage appropriate answer. But I have a feeling it would look a lot like a celebration comment. Oh, their husband and wife, they just got married. They get to go in there and celebrate that they got married.
It's that proper perspective of this is God's plan for marriage, and this is what couples do, and this is a celebration, and there's no shame.
That's right. There's no shame in it. You could even say to 3-year-old Johnny, like, they get to be in there and be naked now that they're husband and wife. And when they come out, we're all going to celebrate it. And then we're going to eat and drink. And it's beautiful. Like, this is a celebration. So when we say celebrate marriage, we're saying from our words that we speak to our children, to the things we say over the pulpit, to the decisions and pressures we put on couples, those are all things you can do without any budget before you ever put any program in place.
Absolutely. And I love it. So we have a church. Let's just think
Okay.
about this church. Okay, here's church across America.
Okay.
They have young marrieds, married with kids, married with teens or young adults still living at home because, you know, the age of children growing up, moving out is, you know, extending now.
Right.
But then they have the couples who are empty nesters and they've spent all these years growing this family and now it's just the two of them looking at each other. You have couples who've been married longer than the pastor or leader has lived, you know. And within all these marriages, here's what we hear on a regular basis. Okay, there's financial crisis. There's housing issues. There's learning struggles at school. There's rebellion in teens. There's other able children who are just consuming a lot of time that could have been spent as a couple, but this child needs them.
Right.
There's the job loss. There's a chronic illness that goes on, or a shocking health report. There's age-related difficulties. And then here's the pastor or the leader. Add to that the addiction, the abuse issue, the domestic violence, or the confession, you know, I'm having an affair. So how on earth is this one couple, one church, one lead couple called pastor and pastor's wife, how on earth are they going to cover all of this in their congregation and still have time to preach the gospel?
Right. I'm glad you gave the list because it paints a really good picture of what's going on in our churches.
It's huge.
Yeah, because we're people, right? And we're fallen.
Yeah, we don't come to church because we're perfect. We come to church because we're very aware how desperately we need God.
Yeah, that's right.
So here we are. So, and maybe what I'm really asking is let's talk about they should not put the pressure on themselves to be the entire body of Christ.
That's right.
There's just no way this one couple can do all of that and more. So, how do we begin to either build within our local congregation ministry leaders? How do we develop lay counselors? Or if you have to go outside of your congregation because of lack of resources or people, how do we then find that person we trust with these precious souls and refer them out for counseling? I know that's probably like huge and that's a big topic, but address it to the level you want to.
Sure. Yeah, it's a big topic, but it's multifaceted, but it doesn't have to be all consuming. And the fact that you are bringing in multiple levels of care is what helps it not be all consuming. Because if you thought of it as just a one-step model of either it's me as the leader or pastor or it's, you know, me referring out, then that can be all consuming. Right. But if you know, okay, there's multiple levels here. I can train the laity in my church. And what that could look like is bringing in someone to do a one-day workshop, giving them some tools, and then putting them into some continuing education. Right. So that could look like a one-time investment to bring, 2 or 3 couples, depending on the size of your church, and putting them in a certificate program.
Maybe like creating marriage mentors.
Yes, it's a marriage mentor program.
But mentors.
That's right. And marriage mentorship, that I've heard so many testimonies of people in the church becoming more whole and healed through marriage mentorship, but also the community coming in because they heard about this marriage mentorship opportunity.
I love that.
Yeah. So I mean, it can look like that, where you have these 2 or 3 couples that you trust, that have healthy marriages, and they are going through a, 6-month certificate program, or even just a 1-day certification. We did that for a lot of the couples in our church. So it's a 1-day certification, and they come in, they get all these tools, and they take, it's premarital and married couples through a program. And it's a marriage mentorship program. But what's really cool is that now that the couples have gone through this program and they've connected with these marriage mentor couples 2-on-2, now they feel at liberty. They're poised for further mentorship. They feel at liberty when something comes up. They don't have to hide it, or they're not told to just pray about it and that's all, or that they have to go inundate the pastor. But now they have these connections they've made, either as a premarital couple or as a young married couple. They've made these connections with a seasoned couple that they can go to when times get tough. And
what a statement the church is making to say, this is how important marriage is.
Yes.
And, and really educating through just providing within the local body there, like, okay, we know this is so important. It's not just a one person can handle all of this.
Right.
So I think that you're certified in Prepare Enrich, right? So I am too.
Yeah.
Love Prepare Enrich, and they're not paying me to say this, but I think that's a great resource for people to do their own work. Really great to do your own work around that.
Yep.
If you have someone in the church that's certified in it, but also maybe bringing someone in to certify marriage mentors, and then you have actually, they have their very fixed program they take everybody through, but some good stuff can happen there as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yep. And then we also have a course that we give for free to pastors and marriage mentors and lay counselors called Prequipped, and it's for premarital.
And that's on your website, right?
It is on our website, yeah. And we can drop a link in the show notes if you'd like.
Perfect.
And they can just reach out to us and say, hey, I'm a pastor of this church, or I do the marriage counseling at this church, or I'm a mentor, and we'll give it to you for free. The couple themselves pays for the course and invests in it so that they're bought in.
Right.
But for you as the leader, it's a free resource, so you can familiarize yourself with the material. We actually do live premarital counseling with a couple that's now been married for a few years with a child and thriving. Yeah. But in the course, they're a premarital couple, and they gave permission for us to record their sessions, and we walk them through a 7-week premarital course.
That's awesome.
It's fun. Yeah. So a lot of people appreciate seeing the counseling live, so that they know how it plays out, so that they have the PDFs and the exercises that they're taking the couple through, but they also see how it plays out in session.
It's modeled for them, so then they feel comfortable, following that guide.
Yeah.
Well, a question I want to kind of circle around. You can just take as long or short as you need, but how would a pastor or a leader in the church refer someone for counseling? I get that question so often.
Yeah.
So when they ask you that, what do you say? How's the best referral?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think a question I get a lot, I'm sure you do too, is like, I don't know where to send them and if I feel safe enough sending them.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? So I would say first, establish a relationship before you're ever referring anyone to a therapist or professional counselor. Establish a relationship with a few, not just one, because that person's not going to be the right niche or the availability for all the people you need to send. So establish a relationship with a few. So what that looks like is getting on the Center for Apostolic Counselors, or getting on there's Psychology Today is a broad database that has counselors of every walk of life.
I think Focus on the Family
Focus
has
on the Family.
There's a lot of places.
But you can filter it. So you can filter it by, religious beliefs. You can filter it by if you want male or female, or the type of counseling they do. And then you call them up or email them and say, hey, I'd like to have a 5-10 minute conversation with you. I'd like to send people your way potentially, but I'd like to interview you and find out more about your approach. And you can literally do an informational interview with them and ask them, hey, tell me, if I were to send a couple to you with this issue, what kind of relationship, or first of all, what kind of relationship would we have about that couple, as the pastor and the therapist? Do you have a release of information that I could sign and be in the loop on, with the couple's permission? And then so you're aware of how that's going to be treated as the pastor or leader that's sending them. And then what modalities do you use? Like you don't want someone who's, trained in same-sex couple counseling and LGBTQ affirming, blah, blah, blah,
Right.
You want to find out what is their value system, and does it align with your value system? And so interview them, I would say that's
Absolutely, because
give you confidence.
everyone who says I'm a Christian counselor doesn't mean they're a biblical counselor.
Right.
And sometimes they just mean I'm a counselor who will be willing to see Christian couples. It doesn't mean that's their value or what they hold
Exactly.
as their identity.
Yes. So interview them. And then we have a one-page PDF we could drop in the show notes, but it's called Determining Level of Care. So know the signs to look for, and we list this in the PDF, to know then what level of care they need. So if they are suicidal, or they're harming themselves, or they are restricting their food intake to the extreme, and like, you don't need to send them to a therapist. You actually need to send them to an inpatient hospital,
Right.
With your care and a therapist's care once they're once they discharge. But like, that's an extreme example. But then there's like levels of care between, right? So one level of care could just be they're stressed and they're coming to you because they're overwhelmed and they just have a lot on their plate. Well, they may not need professional counseling,
Right.
but they might need that marriage mentorship or a class or a book or a podcast. So that would be a level 1, and then it goes all the way to
And then
higher
whoever
levels.
they're asking could feel confident, I'm providing the best resource for them at this time. Instead of just
Yes.
that blanket, well, we send everybody over to X, Y, and Z center, go
Right.
there. And one thing I think is important too is if a person sees a counselor and you get in there and this person makes you uncomfortable or they're not hearing you, it's okay not to go back.
That's right.
Like this is not your therapist for life situation. You're paying them to invest time and education into you and helps into you. But if it's not working and there's not a connection,
Yes.
then maybe consider that first session. They're doing an intake on you and you're doing an intake on them.
That's right.
Are we going to be a good fit? And not walk away and go, oh, I don't like that. And then never give anyone else the opportunity to speak into your life. How tragic.
Yes. And that happens so often.
It does. It does more times than it should. That's so sad.
And it's not always a competency issue.
No.
Sometimes it's just not the right fit.
It's just not a good fit.
Yeah.
Definitely if there's a problem, walk away. If the Holy Spirit in you is going, no, walk away. But I think he leads and guides us, and he's going to put us in relationships with the right people. But every once in a while, you just have those moments, and you just gotta be okay with saying, next. And I'm willing to do that.
Totally.
You kind of mentioned something in passing I want to go back to, and that is, well, here's the question. I think you're going to say, yes, I absolutely believe this, but just to make sure, we should take what we have in the church and make it available to the community. Yes or no?
Yes.
I thought you'd say that. Yes. I think this is such a gift, not in the sense of and it can be evangelism, but in the sense of this is a gift to my community that I'm in. I want to bring God to you and allow him to work in you. So how do we have couples coming to our churches, families in our churches, and we talk Bible, and we have a couples connect group. We have a Sunday school class for couples. We have whatever we're doing for couples. What would that look like? Do you do anything community-wise? I mean, what's that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So for a large church that has the resources and maybe the licensed people in their church, that could look like a full-on counseling center, right? Where they provide the ongoing weekly counseling and classes and all of that. For a small to medium church that doesn't have that, if you have a grief group, if you have a marriage small group, or you have a saved and sober or celebrate recovery group. Make the community aware of that. Absolutely. And so here's the challenge, and it requires just a little bit of funds, okay? Don't be afraid to invest in modern marketing. Now, that could be word of mouth, and that is the best kind of marketing. So encourage your people to share their testimonies, which that's a whole other conversation, is being open about our mental health and marriage testimonies.
Right.
But aside from that, like, invest in some Google AdWords that just target your community. Invest in some Instagram posts that target your community. So if you're going to say, hey, this is open to anyone and everyone, this is free, come and do this, 6-week course. Who's done a really good job of this in the financial counseling world is the Dave Ramsey program.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Financial Peace University. Christians and non-Christians alike look for FPUs in their community to attend, and they know it's going to be just a given number of weeks, and there's going to be a trained facilitator, and I'm going to experience transformation in my financial peace. Make your community aware that you're offering other resources like that. And it might take a small budget of marketing dollars. It used to be that we'd put money into print flyers and go put them door to door. Well, there's nothing wrong in putting money into some AdWords or posts, sponsored posts.
So for people who've never done this before, when you say AdWords, what does that mean?
Yeah, they can Google it. So Google AdWords.
AdWords.
Yep, Google AdWords. And so if someone Googles, which this is what most people will do, or they'll use social media, but they will Google, marriage class in blank city, right? And if you have sponsored, say you put like $100, let's just start small, right? If you've sponsored an ad for this month for those words, for marriage class blank city, your city, that it's going to pop up at the top when someone searches for that. And so you have to make sure that your website has those words in it. Mm-hmm. So first of all, before we go to AdWords, make sure it's on your website. And more people are looking at the church's social media too.
I think that's absolutely right. The flyer, I don't know. I don't even see them like I used to. People just aren't really relying on that anymore.
Not really.
So good advice. That's really great. Yeah. And from your personal experience, would you say that you have had the experience of unchurched couples finding you?
Yes.
And then because of who you are you're able to connect them to God in a way they haven't been before.
For sure. And it's really rewarding. It's really cool. Adam and I have baptized several of our clients.
Oh, wow.
We've married several of our clients.
Love it.
They're members of our church. People watch online, and it's really neat to expose them further to the gospel. I have a couple people in our church, but one gal in particular that I'm thinking of, where I have sent, I don't know how many people to her for Bible studies, because I could provide some Bible study in our counseling sessions, but there's the dual relationship issue.
Right. You have to be careful.
So I will send them to her, and she's like ready to receive them. She's like, okay. And I don't have to tell her they're a client. She knows, I just send her so many people, and she gets them right into Bible studies. And
that is rewarding.
It's a community outreach.
This is why we get up and do what we do every day, is because of kingdom purpose and the joy of living this out with Him.
Yeah.
Oh my,
Totally.
I feel like I'm so blessed and privileged to know Him.
Amen.
And you think, I just wish everyone knew Him. Because what a life, what an incredible life He allows us to have.
Yes.
As we move forward in Him.
Totally.
Well, we're going to put some really wonderful resources in the show notes. We're going to have it. It's going to be there. Lots of great links for all of you.
Yes.
But we're going to wrap this up with what could have been said that hasn't been said. Our last few moments together, whether it's to an individual, a couple, or a church leader.
Yeah.
What do you want to talk about marriage for the last few moments?
Well, I'll just actually broaden that to, since we're talking about the church supporting marriage, I'll broaden that to the role of the body. The body never healed itself by taking the heart out and putting it on a shelf. So don't discount the role of each member of the body. It's not just the pastor's job or just the marriage counselor's job to impact the marriages of the church. It's everybody's job to come together and impact each other. And that can start with a culture of openness. So we talked about celebration, but it's also the vulnerability, opening up and sharing more about marriage. You know, share that you argued and how cool that you settled it. You know, this goes in terms of parents modeling to their children, but also church leaders modeling to the church. You know, you don't want your kids to grow up and say, my parents never argued at all. Like, then they don't have any model of conflict resolution. The same goes for the church. When you're shepherding, you need them to see the good ways to handle conflict in a marriage and how you prioritize marriage. So talk openly about your victories with your spouse's permission.
Yes, that helps.
Talk openly about your victories and be real. Don't be this stuffy, unapproachable leader that people feel intimidated to talk to. Be real.
And I think you're right in the sense of we can share our victories in marriage without being inappropriate.
Yes.
You know, so for some, I think of a particular relative of mine at one point was always, because of ministry, like we're the perfect marriage, we're the perfect family. But behind the scenes, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't horrible, but it was just real life.
Yes.
And I think, you know, I've had numerous leaders in my own life, because that's kind of like the older model. Like if you're in ministry and leadership, you have to have perfected it. And I remember having this wonderful conversation with this woman, quite a few years older than I am. And I said, you know, when you got honest and shared with me real life, I had more respect, more willingness to follow you than when you were impressing me. When you try to impress me, I feel like there's no way I can connect. You don't understand me. You have no idea what my life is like. Yeah. And so I'm going to look elsewhere for a mentor, for someone to follow. So I think that is really true. I think just, it doesn't mean, you know, we're just bringing all the dirty laundry and hanging it out, but we're saying, you know, we're real people and these things happen. I love the way you said it. It gives our children, like, here's a model for conflict resolution. Mm-hmm. You know, here's a model for reconciliation. Here's, you know, like we are providing that and to just really bring to the light how much fun it is to be married. Yes. You know, your best friend. I hope it's your best friend. Yes. You know, I love this person. We laugh, we share. Mm-hmm. And what a gift. What a gift from the Lord to have someone like that in your life.
Amen.
Oh.
Amen.
Karissa, I love you. I am so thankful.
Love you too.
I am so thankful for everything, you coming, being with us, sharing with us for these 2 episodes. And we're going to do this again. I don't know when or where, but we're going to do it again. So
thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Anytime. And for all of you listening in, thank you for being with us. We hope you felt like you were joining 2 friends, having a great time. And we're glad you were with us. Please do share. Please do help us get the word out about this great podcast. And I hope you'll join us next month as we chat with Leanne Alexander, who's an author, Associate Editor-in-Chief at Pentecostal Publishing House, and Senior Vice President of the Pentecostal Resource Group. And we're going to be talking about women who write. So I'll see you next time, and God bless.